Today's episode of the Arc Junkies Podcast is brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys. I'm sure you've heard all about their awesome electrodes and wires for maintenance welding, hard facing, and dissimilar metal repair, but they also carry a full line of cutoff wheels, grinding wheels, burr bits, blades, and more, and I wanted to tell you about the Electra line of cutoff wheels. We all use cutoff wheels, and we know they're not created equal. Rockmount's Electra cutoff wheels are engineered to cut faster and run cooler than other brands. You might not know, but heat is the enemy of all abrasives. It's what causes cutoff wheels and grinding wheels to wear out prematurely. In addition, Rockmount's abrasives are made using a proprietary carbide particle formula and the highest amount of these particles in the industry. This, combined with the cube matrix technology, allows the abrasive particulate to fragment into thin sections, producing a new sharp edge on each particle as they wear to increase lifespan and performance. You can pick up your electric cutoff wheels today in both 4.5 and 6 inch at rockmountwelding.com. And you can save 10% on all abrasives, bits, burrs, and blades when you use Arc Junkies 10 in the discount box at checkout. Get the job done right the first time, every time with Rockmount. We're also brought to you by Outlaw Leather, makers of the finest custom welding hoods available. And you can get yours today at outlawleather.com. You're only limited by your imagination. You want to rep your favorite sports team? They can do it. Branch of the military? They can do it. Your own personal logo for your business? They can do that as well. Your school logo? They can do it. They can put anything on a hood you want. Just send them an email, info@outlawleatherllc.com. And if you don't need something custom that's still cool, they have other handmade hoods using regular and exotic leathers as well. Outlaw Leather is also home of the carbon fiber TIG finger, which is lightweight, stays put, and is super heat resistant. Outlaw carries pretty much everything you need as a welder. Check out their website at outlawleather.com and pick up some new tools and custom leather gear and save 15% on all in-stock leather items when you use Arc Junkies in the discount box at checkout. That's outlawleather.com. Well, everyone, welcome to show number 254 of the Arc Junkies Podcast. Today's guest is Ryan Nearop from Vancouver, Canada. Ryan's a rig welder who does a little bit of everything but specializes in boiler systems. In this episode, we talk about boilers, rig truck setup, working on various job sites, and running your own business. So let's get into it. Fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
You're listening to the Arc Junkies Podcast, helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, Ryan, welcome to the Arc Junkies Podcast, man.
Thanks, Jason. Happy to be here, man. I'm a big fan of yours, and I'm happy to be on here for sure.
I appreciate that, man. I hope the podcast help you, the ride to and from work a little bit better, and then some of the job sites that you're on help pass the time a little bit.
It helps pass the time, and you know what? It also shows me how little I actually know. With some of the guests you have on here and the knowledge a lot of them have, I feel pretty stupid sometimes listening to some of the guys on the show.
Oh, it blows my mind because like I've said it. I probably say it every episode. Like the more I learn about welding, the more I realize I don't know shit about welding. And like you start talking to these different people from different industries, and they start to dive deeper and deeper than you thought welding could ever go. And then I'll go to like Fab Tech, or I'll go to like a AWS section, like one of the section meetings. You start talking to some of these old timers that, they're talking about stuff that's like way above my head. But I mean, that's how you learn, is getting out of your comfort zone and hanging around with people that are smarter than yourself. And I mean, it's great because I get to learn right along with the listeners. Every time I bring a new guest on, there's so much I don't know about welding. So every guest that I have on, I learned something right along with the listeners. It's really cool. It's been a hell of a ride.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you know what? Like when I was 18, I knew everything about welding. And then once I started getting older, then you realize, how it's almost overwhelming how much information there is. So you really got to kind of pick and choose what paths you want to go down, because you can't absorb that much knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to make sure that whatever trade you're going into or direction, that maybe you want to focus on that, because there's just too much to know.
Yeah. And that's kind of like when I was teaching and stuff, I would talk to the students, we teach them, go through all the different processes, stick, MIG, TIG, flux core, like go through everything just to give them like a good general foundation. And they'd get close to graduation. They'd be like, hey, which, what area of welding should I get into? Because like you were saying, there's so many different areas you can get into in this industry. It's insane. And I'll say, what was your favorite process? Which process did you identify with the best? Which one felt the best? Which one were you able to grasp the fastest? Okay, now that you have that process, here's a couple different industries that you want to look into. Because if you aren't really good at stick welding, or you're not really good at self-shielded flux core, you probably don't want to get into the Ironworkers Union. And if you didn't like that process, that's probably not the industry you want to get into. But I had some of them that, they love stick and flux core. So you could kind of, okay, you need to get into construction because, you're going to be working outdoors and stuff. You like that. You identified with the process. You're really good at it. Like go that route, so you kind of steer them into which path based on the process. Cause like you said, there's so much to learn about welding. It's like, once you have a good grasp, you kind of got to focus in on something and learn that really well. And that's kind of what I did. Is I was really good at stick and flux core, but when I got into teaching, I started getting better at the other processes. So, gas metal arc welding, TIG, all that stuff. Like I wasn't really great at those processes until I got into teaching. I knew a little bit about them, but I got better as I went. And that's kind of you got to figure out where your interests lie.
Yeah, for sure. And also to, look at what you want to, like, do you want to be traveling? Do you want to work in a shop? Do you want to have a family? Is the family okay with you traveling? Because a lot of, if you want to be doing downhand, you like that. The pipeline's not going through your backyard.
Yeah.
So you're chasing that around. So that's another part of it too, what not only what you're good at, but also what, where do you want to see yourself working? So there's a lot that's why I think it's good to work with, let's say you get out of high school, it's good to work in my opinion, just as a laborer, work for a bunch of different companies, do it. Like if you can get onto a welding shop or as a helper, and you can kind of see, how those guys operate. You can see, what's their life like. They're the ones that are in this trade doing what you want to do. And it'll be a good indicator of where you could be. So I think that's because you can invest a lot of time into something. Doesn't mean you'll make money doing it.
Yeah.
So
and that could be a good warning sign too. Like when I first got out of the military, I landed a job doing structural steel ironwork for a private company. And I didn't do enough meth and drink enough on the job to work there. So I mean, like you were saying, you're like, look around, look at the people you're working with. What kind of lifestyle are they living with? If that's not the lifestyle that you want, change gears. Get into a different company, or get into a different part of the industry.
Yeah.
You can learn a lot just from observation.
Oh, totally. And also too, I think if you work with a bunch of different people too, you can build skills on your own to make better decisions. Let's say you work with this crew and they go to the bar every day. That's fun when you're young for a little bit, but that gets old, and you don't last very long doing that. So then let's say you work somewhere else and you meet some a little more straight edge guys. Like, what, this is not, and you can make a decision on well, this is a bad decision, this is a good decision. It's tough. I see a lot of young guys because I work in a lot of different trades.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of time, like I worked with a bunch of bricklayers. They're doing some bricklaying at a boiler, and it's a lot of different guys you're working with, because they have a big bricklayers union. So they have so many different access to so many different guys. So when I see some of these young guys, and they're just, they're so young and they've made such bad decisions, and, they're borderline alcoholics, and they're just, you haven't even started your life. And it's not really because they made that decision, just surrounded by the wrong people.
Yeah. Hanging out with the wrong folks.
Yeah.
So when did you get into welding?
Pretty much born into it. So my dad he's still active now. He's a rig welder. So my old man, like he's a rig welder, like more like an entrepreneur, like businessman. So me growing up, like I don't have in high school, I had no desire to do any metal work because to me that was like work. Because if
Sounds
I
too
had a
much like
summer
work.
off, yeah, I was working, like I was put to work. So, but then once you have bill, like so, I moved out pretty young, and then so I had bills, and I had to make some money. So I had a lot of connections, like with obviously with my old man, and I grew up with rig welders and like really good guys who kind of took me under their wing and taught me. And I go back to like when you talk about guys drinking and not drinking. Like there's nothing wrong with drinking. Like, I don't have a beer right now.
Yeah.
It's fine. But so one of the main guys who taught me, I still work with him today. He did pipeline, he did refinery shutdowns, everything. Like he did everything under the sun. But super, like he had his wife and family, so he would work 7/12s for shutdown, and then but he wouldn't be going to the bars blowing all his money. He would save his money, and then he would come home and then take 2 months off with the kids. So like that's who I grew up learning from. So right away, and they had no problem telling you how stupid you are and how to do things properly. So I think for me, that's growing up with those type of guys is kind of why I'm where I am. Just good direction. I mean, nobody does it on their own, right?
Yeah, having a good mentor is kind of key. And sometimes, I mean, you luck out, and like the first place that you're working at, you get a good mentor. Sometimes it takes several years. It wasn't until like later on in my career that I actually found a good mentor that would take the time and teach me and say, hey, you're being a dumbass. And like, somebody that has the fortitude to say, hey, you're being a dumbass. You need to unfuck yourself. And like, this is the direction you need to go in.
Yeah. Yeah. And, back then it was a lot different too, because nobody was worried about offending anybody. So like you suck it up, you got no one to cry to. You just got to suck it up and do it.
Yep.
So nowadays a little bit different, like HR, and there's a lot of, it's kind of a different world. So it's different.
Yeah, it's definitely different. You really can't speak your mind a lot of times.
No, depending on the crew. I mean, some guys are still pretty good, but.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you work for yourself or you work for like a company?
It's our own business. Yeah. So
okay.
Work for myself. Yeah.
So you're the HR department. So you pretty much get away with free speech.
Yeah. I don't get in a whole lot of trouble. So
that's good.
Yeah. So, but sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, what type of work are you into? Because I know you do a lot of stuff with boilers and stuff like that, but like boiler repairs.
So yeah, I'll do whatever. I'll do structural. I'll do kind of. It depends how busy I am and what's going on. But I prefer to do boilers and pressure piping and that type of work. So I have what's called a contractor's license, and so in the U.S. it'd be like having your R stamp to work on pressure vessels and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I prefer to do, that type of work on boilers and piping and stuff.
It looks like it keeps you pretty busy.
Yeah, it keeps. So it just keeps. It seems like it always just keeps coming. So it's you never know what happens. We know it could be slow at some point, but it always seems to be busy. So and when I try to do is like. I will work for people. Like I got some contractors that I'll work for, but if I can work directly for like an owner type thing, so I'll take care of. There's no middleman, so I'll do like a pressure piping system or boiler repairs or retubes and stuff directly for an owner. Try not to do any middleman work, or as little as possible.
Yeah. Now the boilers and stuff that you're working on, are they for like power generation, or are they for like heat for large industrial buildings, or a mixture of both?
Tons of different things. So some of the bigger boilers is actually for like greenhouses. So like growing produce, because you need like an enormous amount of heat for growing produce, because you'll have like a massive greenhouse, 100 acres of greenhouse that's all glass. So like the R value of glass is not great. So, you got to heat these greenhouses in the winter. So they have a lot of boilers, apartment building boilers, any sort of production, they all like steam boilers. Pretty much everything has a boiler. You'd be shocked how many boilers there are. So I stick to like more of the smaller boilers, like fire tube boilers and that kind of stuff. I don't really get into the refineries or anything.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you if you were running the fire tube boilers, or I think, what's the other one? The water tube boilers, where they circulate water through it?
Yeah, they got the water tube boilers. So like they're generally a lot bigger boilers. So I don't really get into that. Usually, like around here, they got like the boilers maker union that'll come in and do most of that work.
Okay.
So I'm just too small to do that.
I got you. Now the material that you're replacing, like, because I see like on your Instagram and stuff, you're replacing all these tubes inside the boiler. Are they regular mild steel, or are they like chromoly, or is it like a special composition of material, to resist heat and steam and moisture and all that?
So the way it works is if I got to do a repair on a boiler, I'll get what's called a MTR. So, an MTR, a manufacturer's data, MDR, a manufacturer's data report.
Okay.
So I'll get that first, which is required. I have to be able to produce that to the inspector, and then that will have a breakdown of all the components of the boiler. So if you're doing a tube sheet, or if you're doing tubes, the spec of that tube or the tube sheet will be in that MDR. And then obviously you have to replace it with equivalent or the exact same material.
So it basically tells you what type of alloy you're going to be working on. So at that point, you can identify, how am I going to weld this? What filler metal am I going to use? Like all that, what material to order, all that stuff.
Yeah. So it won't tell you what filler material, like a welding procedure you'll have to have a compatible welding procedure to weld on whatever that base metal is. But yeah, that MDR will tell you the thicknesses and what the material is. Because obviously the thicknesses matter, because depending on what welding procedure you're using, it'll have a minimum and maximum thickness of your WPS.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have to match all that up. And it's actually super simple. Like that stuff is actually really simple, because you don't really have to, like, you're not really figuring anything out on your own. You're just matching. Okay, this is what it is.
That's going to make it a lot easier to kind of bid the job. You can see everything right there in front of you. You don't have to go out there and kind of guess what you're replacing.
Yeah, no, I think some guys do, and it's obviously not by the book. But yeah, you can't.
Then you go out there and fix it for them, and then you get paid.
Yeah, you'd be the stuff that I've seen is just it's pretty insane. If you don't phone the inspector, or if nobody knows what you're doing, sometimes they get away with it, I guess.
Yeah. Now, did the companies that you're doing this work for, do they provide you with a WPS, or do you have to go out and get like a process or a procedure qualified, and then kind of submit that to the inspector as well, saying, hey, we got the process certified, and like now I'm also certified to weld this.
So the way it works here is I have a quality control manual with procedures in it that are so our governing authority, because I live in BC, Canada, like British Columbia. So our governing authority is called Technical Safety BC. So I have a quality control manual issued like with my A contractor's license from Technical Safety BC. So in that quality control manual has all my current welding procedures, WPSs, and all that. So I kind of have a scope of what I'm going to be doing, and I'll have the welding procedures in my quality control manual that I'm pretty. So there's been a few boilers where I've been like, hey, that's not in my scope. I have no procedures that are compatible with what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, it's just like, well, if it's a tiny job, it's not worth spending money to
qualify the procedure.
That.
Yeah. So have you ran across situations where you didn't have the procedure, but you really wanted the work, and you went out and got a procedure qualified and then got certified to it, and then just added that to your manual?
No.
It's
so BC, we actually got I think it's a good system. So what we have is through technical safety, we have, I think it's 14. They're called PWPs. So they're called pre-qualified welding procedures. So an engineer, like through technical safety, has come out with these pre-qualified procedures that anybody can use. So to be able to add that into my manual, I'd have to go to a testing facility and test on that procedure. And then I can get that procedure into my manual, and it only costs me like $400 to test. So it's actually a really good system, because you can, let's say you're a younger guy, want to start a company and start working on these vessels and stuff. Because your other option for welding procedures is paying like an engineer to make a procedure for you, and you're looking probably like 10 to 15,000 per procedure. So with these pre-qualified procedures, I think it's actually a pretty good system where, the overseeing agency has come up with all these procedures that they're pre-qualified. You can still make your own, but you can use these ones as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I mean, we got some flexibility down here through the AWS with D11 for pre-qualified processes, and you could kind of develop a welding procedure specification off that because it's pre-qualified. So there's specific processes and material thicknesses and stuff. I mean, you have to go through the codes and be able to interpret all that, but I mean, there's a little bit of leeway in there to where you can crank out your own, but anything outside of that realm, you then, very similar to what you guys have to do, you have to go get that procedure qualified, and then you have to get the welders certified to it. Unless you're the welder that, ran the test plate for the procedure qualification, they get certified, because they ran the sample.
Yeah.
And then that whoever that company is that, that did the work and paid for that fee, they now own that welding procedure specification. They get the PQR to back it up, and then they get the certified welder. But it's an expensive process to go through and get all that stuff done, depending on, especially the alloy, the process you're using. There's so many different types of tests that have to be done for, different procedures. Some of them, it could just be a bend test. Some of them, you got to go through and do RT and an X-ray and like all kind, X-ray, tensile pulls, bends, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I think the pre-qualified ones are good, but I hope I explained that properly, but I'm sure somebody, if I didn't, will let me know.
Oh, hit them up on Instagram. It made sense to me because, like I said, it's very similar down here. We got some pre-qualified stuff. Anything outside of that, you got to hunt down a testing lab and qualify it yourself and pay deeply for that.
Yeah. So, but the biggest problem I see, because I know all the inspectors in my area pretty much. I'm pretty close to some of them, and some of the old timers. Like we'll chat. If I have questions, I'll just phone them up and kind of pick their brains a bit. But the biggest problem in BC, so we have these pre-qualified procedures, which all the boiler inspectors should be pretty familiar with because it's their procedures. And I find even them, they don't understand the procedure, because there's a lot. I mean, you'll get sometimes half-inch thick of paper, and that's the procedure. So if you get a guy who's got to sign off on work and he doesn't understand these procedures, he doesn't understand what he's signing off on. And I find with these pre-qualified procedures, I find inspectors that don't I have to watch what I say a bit, but they kind of have no idea what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And they don't really know what they're signing off on. So if you kind of go out and make your own procedures, because they want to get rid of these pre-qualified procedures, because they don't want the liability. And then now we're going to get into territory where, let's say I'm doing a repair on a boiler, let's say a tube or something, that's maybe a 4-hour repair. Now this inspector is going to have to sign off on this welding procedure and go through an inch worth of paperwork and try to decipher what he's signing off on.
Yeah.
So I hope that makes sense. But.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, we have the same thing down here. We get a lot of inspectors that they pass the test, but they don't have any hands-on experience in doing this stuff, and they're kind of lost in the sauce when they get out there into the field and start actually inspecting stuff and having to read some of the technical documents.
Yeah, no, exactly. So if you're a big refinery, you're going to have people on staff that are very smart in those departments. So they would make sure a mistake was not had. But when we're doing these smaller boilers where the customer really has no idea, they're just, leaving it up to the contractor to figure it out and the inspector. That's where we see we can run into some problems.
Yeah, and that's got to be, I would imagine that's got to be like an added benefit for a lot of the clientele that you have. The simple fact that you're very familiar with not only the repair process, but what's required. Okay, you need to have a WPS. You got to have the MDRs from for the material that you're actually getting ready to weld on. So you can kind of educate the client as to, hey, look, this is all the paperwork you're going to need to have for when the inspector comes there. So you can kind of educate your client a little bit better. So they're getting a little bit more, when they hire you to come down and replace or repair, parts of the boiler versus bringing somebody in that really doesn't know the ins and outs of it. They might know how to, run a bead or, swap out a tube or something, but they really don't know what all's required. And then the inspector rolls up and they're like, where's your paperwork? Well, nobody knows where it's at this point, so that's, you kind of get what you pay for.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I've lost jobs before to other guys that don't do everything by the book or by the paperwork, and just because they're cheaper. But because I've gotten into it with some of the inspectors, because I'm like, hey guys, like, you're not doing your job. You're signing off on this work, and they're not doing it by the book. Because I'll get grilled. Because the biggest problem is they'll go after the guys doing everything by the book, because they're the easiest guys to go after.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have more something to lose. But kind of fly by night guys that will do some of these repairs. It's hard for the inspectors to go after them because they don't really have a whole lot to lose.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting. So, like, what's your most common repair when it comes to boiler? Is it the tubes or the tube sheet?
Tubes, a lot of cracks into the tube sheet. So, but yeah, mainly tubes and cracks. Those are the main repair that I see in boilers.
Okay, so on the tube sheet, when you get a crack, do you just grind it out and do a little bit, or do you do any die pen before you start grinding everything out?
So if there's a crack, I have to get a third party inspector in, like a NDT guy.
Okay.
So I got a few guys I deal with. So what you do on a crack is, if it goes into the tube sheet, especially, you get an NDT. So if it's just on the tube itself, I'll still get a guy in just to once you pull the tube out, to verify that crack hasn't gone into the tube sheet. But if it has gone into the tube sheet, what we have to do is, number one, I'll get the guy to test the whole tube sheet to see where the cracks are. Once we've established where the cracks are, I'll start V'ing out the crack, and the NDT guy will assist in excavating it out. So you take a little bit out, then he retests. If it's still there, you just keep excavating it out until the crack is totally gone. Once he's verified that the crack is 100% gone, then we'll generally do one pass or two passes. Then he'll retest again just to see if a crack has. Because sometimes with the heat input, you'll push a crack.
Yeah, it'll start propagating.
Yeah, so then you'll test again after one pass or two. It kind of depends who the inspector is, or if we're kind of in a rush or not.
Yeah. Now, when you locate the crack, do you do any like spot drilling at the end of the cracks to keep it from spreading any further, or you don't want to puncture through that pipe sheet or that tube sheet?
Yeah, I've seen that on like rims and stuff, guys doing it, but like as far as pressure vessel work, I've never seen anybody drill a crack.
Okay. Yeah, we had to do that with go ahead.
Yeah, I could be maybe there could be a different way of doing it. That's just how we were kind of taught how to do it.
Yeah, I had to do armor plate when I was in the Marines, and that's one thing we would do is anytime you locate a crack or whatever, you do like a die penetrant and figure out, where it stops and starts or wherever. And then you take like a 1/8 inch or 3/16 drill bit, and you go about an 1/8 inch away from the crack where it starts and where it stops, and you drill a hole straight through, and then you'll grind, roughly 60% of the material out, and then you'll weld up the one side. Then you go to the other, you go on the inside, pull out the remaining 40, or until you get to sound weld metal, and then you make that repair, or you finish the weld from the other side. But what that hole does is a hole, once that crack hits that hole, it won't spread because it's circular, so it's got all that energy is kind of lost as soon as it hits that hole.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. No, I've never drilled a hole. I think it's on a tube sheet could be different too, because some of them, you're getting a little like, let's say you have a 3/4 inch tube sheet. That crack is generally not 90 degrees to the, let's say it's, it's not square with where that crack ends is not square with the tube sheet.
Right.
So, maybe that's.
Yeah, especially 3/4 of an inch thick. You don't know where that thing's propagating from. Now, is the cause of that like just because it's in service use, or is it like delamination in the original base material?
I honestly, so I've heard a lot of different things, but in my experience, it's too much. It's too much heat. I think if a tube sheet's getting too much heat, then over time, like, let's say it's firing up, especially a boiler that's not commissioned properly, and we're firing on high fire or something where you're getting an enormous amount of heat, and it's getting too hot too quickly and cooling too quickly.
Okay.
That's my opinion, but I'm not a metallurgist, so I'm sure I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, that's the one area that I'm kind of weak in, but I mean, that would make sense, heating and cooling, as it's expanding and contracting, that's a lot of stress on that material.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then like boilers that I see cycle a lot, like, because you'll come in and you'll see it cycling on and off like constantly. Those are the ones where you see are in the worst shape. So that's kind of what I think. But like I said, I could be totally wrong.
Okay,
totally wrong.
Now,
I could fix it.
Yeah. Now, do those tubes run straight through like to an other side, or because I seen a lot of the stuff that you do on your that you post. You've got like the tubes and you're kind of welding the surface of it. Now, the end of that tube, is that exposed to another tube plate on the opposite end of the boiler, or is there a point inside the system where it's got like a return line and it does like a 180 somewhere in there?
So all the ones that I'm doing they have on the other side is another tube sheet.
Okay. So it's just like straight shot.
Straight shot. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, how the hell when you like cut that old tube out and you take it out, that's got to be the easy part. How do you put the new tube in and hit the exact same hole on the opposite side? Because I imagine it's not, you're not working with a couple of feet, you're probably like 15, 20 foot sticks or better.
Yeah, some of them up to 20 feet. So what you do is, you get a big bar, and then you got to get another guy on the other side has a big bar. So the first few, so you start on the bottom, and then the first few, you're kind of fishing it in. And then once you get a row of tubes, it's literally, you can just slide on top of the tubes on top.
Okay, they're that close to where you can just slide them one on top of the other. And then you just kind of fish it in place with the other bar.
Yeah, you just grab it on the other end with the bar. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I noticed
it's just labor.
Yeah, I noticed all of them don't get welded in. Like I seen you had some sort of apparatus where you can trim everything damn near flush, and then you put like a flaring tool on it, and with like an impact gun or something to that, or a drill, and you flare the ends of it so they don't get welded. They just get like a flared finish on them.
Yeah. So we use a pneumatic. So all those tools just use a pneumatic. I have a 1-inch pneumatic gun. That's probably like, it's probably, I have no idea how it is. It could be 100 years old. I don't know. But I got it passed down from another boiler guy. But so some of them are welded. I don't make that decision. I just, I repair it to manufacturer spec. So however the manufacturer did it, that's how I will do it. So a lot of the times, because welding is a lot more time consuming, obviously. So a lot of the times it's only welded on so you'll have your Morrison tube. So that's your first pass. So you have your burner, your fire will go generally through a Morrison tube, which is just a big tube. And then whatever your first pass, so the hottest pass where the gases are the hottest, generally those tubes are welded. And then a lot of the times the rest of it is just rolled. So some of them are just straight rolled. What you're talking about is, so that's straight rolled. So we cut it, straight rolled, and then, not straight rolled. Those are beaded over.
Mm-hmm.
That's called a beat. So it's a rolling and beading tool all in one. So it's beaded over. Some of them are just rolled and flared. Again, it goes by whatever the manufacturer, how they did it. That's how we do it.
Okay. Now, what's your preference? Like when, because I mean, obviously you're running different jobs. Every time you come up, it's a different repair. Like, is your favorite application to go ahead and roll that bead? Like, if you had your choice, would it be roll the bead or like weld it out?
I like doing both, to be honest. I know that's a kind of a dumb thing to say, but I like doing a lot of different. I don't really like doing the same thing over and over. So I like welding, obviously. I like to weld them, but rolling is fun too, because rolling is an art on its own. So the more and more tubes you do, you get better and better at it. So I like to do those as well, just to, keep your skills kind of honed in on, because it's a lot of feel. Like it's not like, hey, this is how you do it. It's a lot of feel and just like, that's why you can't, like, I can't just hire anybody and be like, hey, roll these tubes. Because, you start over rolling tubes, that's a big problem. So I like to roll the tubes. Rolling the tubes is fun. I like doing it. I like welding the tubes. So ideally, I guess to answer your question is maybe like a 50-50 mix.
Okay.
Like
yeah, you don't
half welded, half rolled.
Yeah, I used to do that when I was doing structural steel. It's like, as much as I love welding, man, like shit, I just want to bolt some stuff up today. Like I don't want to weld nothing. And then every once in a while you'd be on the bolt up gang and you're like, damn, well, like I just want to weld some shit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love welding, but I also love not welding.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. So especially in the summer. So now when you weld this stuff in, like when you weld the tubes, is it always stick welding, or do you get to like throw some flux core, or sometimes do you have to go in there and TIG weld it because it's some sort of fancy alloy or something that it's not efficient to do it with stick or flux core?
So I know some are TIG welded. All the ones I deal with are stick welded, or I don't know how they do it from the factory, but I stick weld it because I have a procedure to do that.
Okay.
So I do have a TIG welding procedure in my manual, but it's only for stainless. I don't have a carbon TIG ticket in my manual. So I have I have the tickets. I don't know how the US works, but Canada's different. Like so you probably talk to guys, but you have to be a journeyman, like Red Seal welder. Like so you have a ticket that you're certified to weld, but you still can't weld on anything because you don't have any welding procedures. Then you go and pick what procedures you want to do. So I don't have a procedure for carbon TIG welding.
Okay.
I could get one. But.
Yeah, the way that you guys do it up there, I would almost prefer to do it like that down here, because you got a plethora of people out there that are in the industry that they're only limited to one process and they're really not that great at it. So I mean, I think having to go through an apprenticeship and become a journeyman and get something like the equivalent to a Red Seal stamp, that's recognized internationally, for the most part, I think that would be a step in the right direction. So I think what you guys have done with the CWB is freaking great, or the TSBC. I would imagine it's very similar to the CWB.
Yeah.
But going through and having to complete a journeyman or like an apprenticeship is freaking awesome. I think everybody should have to do that, getting into any skilled trade, not just welding. Going through and make sure that everybody that's going out there on the job, they know how to do their job correctly. You don't just walk onto the job site one day and fake it till you make it. And I mean, I get it. People have to go out there and they've got to make money. They got to support their family. But, you got to start at a younger age, bring people into the skilled trades and train them up and skill them up properly and then get them certified.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're right. And what I see too with like fellow welders and stuff, it keeps the wages higher. Because you can't have somebody just coming in undercutting everybody.
Yeah, everybody's got the same skill set, so nobody's going to work for dirt cheap because they're like, no, I'm a journeyman Red Seal welder. I'm not going to work for $16-17 an hour.
Totally, yeah. So that I think it's like, I love the US and I love a lot of things, but I think for Canada, I think that aspect is for at least the welding trade is better for sure.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, nobody's perfect. I mean, we're all still trying to figure all this shit out.
Exactly. I know we're all just, nobody knows everything.
Yeah. No, I think it's really cool how they do that up there. So now in addition to the boilers, like what you said you're doing like structural. So like what type of other work are you getting into outside of boiler repair?
Whatever comes down the pipe, man, whatever people phone for. So I work with a lot of other contractors as well. Like there's a lot of plumbing outfits. Some of them are not great to work for. I work for I kind of pick and choose. So some of them are really good. So they'll take on, just a piping job, any sort of piping job. So, but most of the stuff I'm doing is pipe welding and boilers. I don't really venture too far. I will do structural for some people, but I don't do it. I don't do a ton. It's kind of for like if I have a really good customer and he needs some stuff done, he'd kind of prefer to use me, and that's if it's the structural stuff. As far as getting like structural jobs, I'm not really set up. I'm not to be totally honest, I'm just not competitive. Like if you get a guy who does structural full time, like they can go in, they're set up to do it, they're really good at it, and they can just pound it out. Whereas I don't do that all the time. So, and I'm really particular with my work. Like I don't mind, like if someone's like, you're too slow, like I'm like, well, like go get someone else then. I have a way I want it to look, and I have a way I want to do it. So I'm just, for sure, a lot of things I'm not competitive. So I don't really get into those markets like heavily.
No, I mean, and that makes sense. You can't, and that's one thing I kind of realized when I ran a welding business is you can't do it all. You got to find out what you specialize in, what you're really good at, what brings in the most money, and then you kind of tool yourself up for that.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And that's kind of what my truck is set up for, like boilers and piping and that type of work. And it's what I enjoy the most.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Like your rig truck. How did you go about like setting that up as far as like the layout, the function, where you've got everything placed and sat?
So my dad has a very similar rig. Like he always had this type of rig. So it's kind of what I grew up with. And then the other rig welders I worked with also had this type of rig. So it's kind of what we grew up with. So it's like, we get a lot of rain. Like in BC, we get, we probably get 8 months of solid rain. So everything's got to be, be able to packed up tight. I do a lot of work in the city. So, there's a massive homeless problem in the city. So everything's got to be locked up tight. So you got to make a rig. So number one, all your shit's not going to get ripped off, and a truck where you can keep everything out of the elements. And then I also get a regular cab. A lot of people, they don't understand why I get a regular cab, but I do a lot of work in the city, and I just have to be able to park that thing. Like if your truck's like fucking 30 feet long,
yeah, it's hard to parallel park anyway. Downtown.
Exactly. So, and to be honest, like I maybe shouldn't say it, but I don't work out of town a lot. I'm at home like every night, so I don't need to pack all my shit in my truck.
Oh, that's a plus. Well, that, like not having an extended cab, you've got 2 less windows to get busted out.
No, exactly. And it's just more shit. Like the less room you have, the more organized you're going to be.
Yeah. I say that because we like during Fab Tech, like we had the, that event with Weld Porn Blue Demon and all that stuff. Well, I guess that night, a bunch of people got their vehicles broken into. Like, and apparently it's a thing in downtown Atlanta. Like if you got out of state plates and you're parked somewhere, they're going to smash your window out. I was like, damn.
Oh, really?
I mean, yeah, it was just like the crew that we were hanging out. It was like 4 out of 5 got their windows smashed.
That sucks.
Damn, that does suck. Like, luckily I drove, and like the hotel that I was at, they had like an underground parking garage with valet. So it kind of worked out. Like I didn't have a choice of where to leave my vehicle. But yeah, I'd rather pay the $20-$25 a night than, have to pay for a $500 window repair.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, me and my wife are like this close to coming to Fab Tech this year, but just work always seems to get in the way.
Yeah.
Like something always comes up, and like for us too, it's a long, like, cause we're on the opposite end, on the West Coast in Canada. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're taking a whole week off. So it's pretty tough to do that.
Yeah. That's my buddy, Dusty James with Pacific Arc TIG Welding. He's out there, I guess, Vancouver, some island off the coast of BC. I can't remember the name of the island.
Vancouver Island.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Duh. But yeah, he flew out. He flew out from there, and I guess he had a pretty good trip. But then my buddy Max with the CWB, I think he's out of like the Saskatchewan area, and like he had a hell of a time getting in. Like his plane got canceled, and then it got delayed, and then like problems at customs, and then like getting in, and then they lost all his luggage, and he showed up with his, basically what he was flying with in his carry-on for the first 2 days until he could get a lot of stuff replaced and, get his stuff back from the airport. So, yeah, it's international travel is kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, no, that sucks. I mean, we can always go down to Seattle. Like I live like 5 minutes from the U.S. border. Like I'm really close to the States. So I can just whip through and go to Seattle if I wanted and get a direct flight, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that'd probably be the best bet.
Yeah.
So now what else do you have? Like if somebody's setting up their truck for, to do boilers and pressure vessels and stuff like that? Like, what do you think's the best like layout to, like start with a truck and a machine and all that stuff?
I think for a truck, if you want to set up a truck, number one, you obviously got to know what you're doing. If you plan on doing like pipeline or something where you're literally not fabbing on your truck at all, I would probably go with like a skid, just to be honest, because and keep it as light as possible. If you're trekking through the mud or, you want to keep it light, you don't need all the tools. You're just welding on the pipeline. If you want to get into like what I'm doing, then I think a deck is I think a deck is better. You can pack more tools, like I said, I think every city has like a homeless problem. So like you want to be able to lock all your shit up tight.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, like I've had a lot of different trucks in the past. I like to get the 4,500 trucks because, every truck I've had put 200,000 clicks on it. And these 4,500s, pretty much no brakes, no nothing. It holds up and it's, maybe it doesn't ride the nicest, but the wear and tear is very little.
Okay. That's you mentioned skids. My buddy Randy runs that Alumareel company. And that was that's one of the cool things that I thought about his company is the whole thing is set up on a skid. So, I mean, you can literally, you get home or you get wherever, you can take it off with a forklift and go lock it up somewhere. And now you got your truck back, so it's multi-purpose. You can put your machine on there, all your cables, reels, bottles, everything, and even toolboxes. So you can just pick the whole, unbolt it and pick the whole thing up, take it off, and, you're good to go. And then in a pinch, like he had a guy that his truck broke down. And so he went and rented a U-Haul pickup truck, like the biggest one they had, and they just swapped it over with a forklift, and he took the U-Haul for, till he got his truck repaired. So I mean, that's kind of nice to be able to swap that out. So it doesn't, he was a couple hours, out of a day, but, he wasn't like, oh, shit, my truck's in the shop for the next week, and so are all my tools and my welding machine and everything that's on it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, those Alumareel skids are super, those kind of turnkey thing you can buy. It's super, super convenient for sure. I think another thing for a rig, if you're setting it up, I'd make it as practical as possible. Because I think if you're showing up to a job, where you have multiple customers or you're trying to make an impression, they want to know what they're paying. Everybody wants to get what they pay for. So if you come and you can show up, look professional, be efficient, have the truck laid out efficiently, so you can come in, do that job. And if they have a good taste in their mouth, like after you leave and they're happy with what the service that you provided, and what the first thing they'll see is you rolling up on site. So have a nice clean rig and something that's practical, because people like that when they see a practical, nice clean rig. Right away they just think you're professional from the start. Mm-hmm. And that's what you need to be, because if you're charging out at a rig rate, a lot of people don't want you to be there, number one. But if you are there, they want to know that what the service that they're getting is going to be professional. And so if they see the rig looks professional, then that's the step in that's the the first impression. You don't get a second one.
Yeah. I think that's a problem a lot of people make, when they try to break out in the industry and they get out there and, they pass their first weld test, and the next thing they're financing a truck they don't need and kind of just digging themselves in debt because they're going to allegedly make all this money. And then they get out there and, maybe they don't pass that second weld test, or, something happens. And now, you've got this big ass truck you really didn't need in the first place. You spent all this money on it, and now you're out of work, and there it goes. Now they're coming, the repo man's coming to take your truck because you bought something, like you said, that wasn't practical.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think if you're going to spend money on your rig or anything, I think, and don't get me, I don't want to piss on it. I don't want to piss anybody off, but like maybe like instead of getting an 8-inch limb, all those things are fine, but maybe you could invest, if that costs $5,000, invest in a different machine or another welding machine, because you're running a business. So when you're running a business, you want to invest into your business, into things that make you money. And that's just my opinion. Nobody's doing this for fun. So if you can instead invest in, okay, let's get this welding, maybe I can do these types of jobs. Let's buy this welding machine. Let's buy this, the smoke eater. Like I never had a smoke eater for the first, like, forever. And now with that smoke eater, like, I find places all the time where I'm just like, hey, do you want, you don't like smoke in the building? How about I have one I'll rent to you. Like, I'll use it. Okay, well, now that's an extra, sometimes, it's an extra $150 in a day that you can make on a piece of equipment. So you add that up on every job you're doing. And now, that's access to revenue.
Mm.
So I just think when you're setting up a rig or whatever you're doing, that money you spend, you should be investing into your company in things that are going to make you money. Because at the end of the day, we all want to work as little as possible for as much as possible. And you want to work as, we all want to retire at some day, so the more money you can make and the smarter decisions you make will make that come faster.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Stronghand Tools. Stronghand makes awesome tools to help you increase productivity and accuracy and decrease your time. My all-time favorite product that they make is the Rhino Cart that comes with a 66-piece fixturing kit. This table has helped me out quite a bit in my small shop when it comes to organizing and fabrication. Get your Stronghand table today and save 10% off, plus get free shipping to the lower 48 states right now through the end of the year when you go to stronghandtools.com/promo. We're also brought to you by Everlast Welders. Everlast makes great machines for every skill level and budget. They have a full line of stick, MIG, and TIG welders, as well as multi-process machines like the Storm 215C, which features MIG, stick, and plasma, all in one unit, weighing in at just 68 pounds. If you're starting off in the industry, or you're a hobby welder, or you're running a small business, the Storm is the way to go. And you can get yours today for just $12.29. And make sure to use Arc Junkies in the comment section at checkout when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal, and get that free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch upgrade. Everlast Welders. Weld mean, weld green. We're also brought to you by O2 Armor. Whether you're working in the shop, at home, or around the yard on the weekends, you're exposed to airborne particulates. Grinding dust, dirt, debris, pollen, etc. And 90% of your breathing is done through your nose. So block these hazards before they get in there with O2 Armor, the concealed nasal filtration system. O2 Armor comes in several different sizes to get the best fit possible and filter particulate matter down to 2.5 microns. Check them out today at o2armor.com and use ArcJunkies10 to get 10% off at checkout. Breathe it in or block it with O2 Armor. Now let's get back into the show. Yeah, now I want to say that was one of the cool things I seen on your page, like watching, how you do your work and stuff, is the fact that you're a rig welder. I mean, so like most of your work's portable, but you actually took the investment to buy a fume extractor. Like, what was your, other than the obvious, what was your thought process behind that? Because, most people that work in the shop, you should have access to at-the-source fume extraction, regardless of what you're welding on. Anytime you burn anything, paper, wood, especially metal, it's not good for you to breathe in. So having a respirator, a PAPR system, or at-the-source fume extractor is your best bet. So, what was it that prompted you to buy a portable fume extractor to do all this mobile work? Because it's not something that the average rig welder carries around with them.
No, and it's big. And obviously you don't have to keep that in your rig. Like, it's big. I keep mine in my rig. So the reason I needed that was I was working for a company. So I work for a couple elevator companies doing their hydraulic cylinders. So we're always working in a building, obviously. And they would always rent those vortex fans and running like hundreds of feet of that hose with the vortex fan. And I'm looking at it, I'm just like, I see the old grannies and stuff tripping over this massive hose. I'm like, dude, you guys, what are you doing? Like, this is pretty bush league. It's fancy hotel. You got this massive. I said, if I get a smoke eater, would you just rent that off me? And they're like, yeah. I was like, okay, done. So I got it, and then, but it saves them money too, because they're paying 2 elevator techs in a van to go to, United Rentals, go rent a fan, and so that's half a day for them. So really, them renting a smoke eater off of me actually makes them more money.
Yeah. So
and again, it's just, it's like, you always got to look for angles too. What can I do to, what can I do to try and make some more money, or, and that's an angle I chose to take, and, it works.
Yeah.
So.
Now, do you primarily use that system only when the customer's charging for it, or do you find yourself using it regardless just because the benefits of it pulling all the damn fumes out of your face?
Yeah. So everyone I work for probably, they're not going to hear this, so that I would use it regardless.
Yeah. I'd charge them either way.
Yeah. No, I use it all the time on my own when I don't charge, because it depends. Like, if I have a really good customer, I'll use it and not charge them, because you got to pick and choose where, if you nickel and dime everybody, especially good customers, you want them to get a fair deal too. So if somebody gives you a lot of work, I'll do things, so Smoke Eater, I'll never charge them for that,
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be ethical to certain things.
Yeah. Now, the one that you have, I'm assuming it's the one from Lincoln Electric, right?
Yeah, that's the X tracker.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little bit taller and narrower than a shop vac, like a regular, your standard, 5-gallon shop vac or 10-gallon shop vac. It's I think we had one on the back of the robot, so I mean, it's pretty tiny and portable. It's not too awful bad. Probably 18, maybe 20-inch diameter, and then probably sits about 2 foot tall.
Yeah, it's about I think it's like 18 inches by 18 inches and 2 feet long ish.
Yeah, okay.
It's fairly big, but yeah, it's bigger than it's not like the shop vac one. It's bigger than that.
Okay. Yeah, see, they got some pretty small ones that are rather nice.
Yeah, those are good too, and that would probably be good enough for what I was doing, but I chose to go that route with that one, to a little more. But it's done. I'm shocked how much you can put through that filter. Like, I welded a floor of a tank. I think the tank was 40 feet in diameter. So we did, and the sheets were 8 feet wide. So you're doing, it's hard for me to explain how much, but it was probably 200 pounds of rod through that thing, and it kept running. So.
Yeah, they're freaking awesome. We had the Lincoln fume extractor at the school that I was at, and I think it had 12 filters in it, and we'd swap them out. We'd change out the sediment, because they were like self-cleaning. So at the end of every day, the system would purge, and it kind of traps everything in one area, so it would blow all the particulate matter off the filters through like an air compressor, and then all of that sediment would, like, it's in an enclosed box, so when it puffs and blows all that stuff off, all that sediment comes down and it collects in these pans. And it's just like really, 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 it's like talcum powder. It's really fine, yeah, I mean, essentially it's just weld fume, but it's like talcum powder. We would swap those out. We had little bags underneath, and you take the can down and then tie it up. And it's like, I actually got a little mason jar, like a clear mason jar, and I'd scoop it up, and I'd show that to my class and say, you know what this is? And like, nobody could figure it out. I'd pass it around the class. They'd look at it like, whatever you do, don't open it, because it's such a fine particulate matter. I'd say, this right here is welding fumes. This is what you're breathing in. This is why we have fume extractors. Here's why you need to use the fume extractors. Here's why, once you get out in industry, respirator, PAPR system, at the fume air extraction, natural air that's blowing through the shop, or, set up some sort of mechanical ventilation to get that shit away from you, because you don't want to breathe this stuff in. It's nasty.
Oh yeah, no, that's for sure. And how old am I now? 37. I wish I had that. So I breathed in so much shit in my day, and it just, back then it was a way different. I mean, nobody, it's kind of like, hey, don't be a pussy type thing. Just do it. Which a lot of it is kind of wrong too. I wouldn't, you got to protect the health of people for sure. So, and it was totally different. Like, it's not like a malicious thing. It's just things were way different back then.
Yeah, there's a different mentality. It's a tough guy syndrome.
Yeah, and then, but so you die of lung cancer in the hospital, you don't look too tough.
No.
So, PPE, certain PPE is for sure. Fume extractors and smoke and all that stuff. You definitely don't want to be breathing in if you don't have to be.
Yeah, nasty shit. So now I noticed that pretty much everything you run is Lincoln. Is there a specific reason why you're a big fan of the red machines?
So it'd probably stem down from every rig welder that I learned from. I mean, they're Lincoln. They'd be like, we don't run Miller. Look at that piece of shit. Don't. So, SA 200s and Pipeliner 200s, everything was Lincoln. But also I have a lot of Miller equipment. I got a Dynasty. I have a Dynasty 350 TIG machine. I have a MTX 350. Those are good machines. I know I give Miller a hard time, but I mean, anybody who is a real welder who uses these machines for what they're meant to do, they know Miller and Lincoln are, they're both cream of the crop. Like, they both make great equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of, when I was make fun of Miller, but it's just kind of funny. Like, people get so angry. I'm just like, to me, it's just kind of funny. So just go with it.
Yeah. You got to check out that dude, Pipeline Pierce. You've probably seen that, yeah? Dude. Oh, have you seen that video?
I don't know. What is it?
You're going to have to, it's this dude that's standing on the back of a rig truck, and he's talking about how great Lincoln is, and it's pretty hilarious. You have to,
I want to watch it. Send it later on.
I'll write that down in the show notes. It's freaking hilarious, and it's not like a sponsored thing. It's just some dude in his backyard talking about how great Lincoln is, but it's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. No, I like, and there's a lot of things Lincoln does that, like, I don't want to knock, they're trying to make money too, but I do want to knock them down. I knock them all the time. I should say that. But Lincoln, like, what they do with, like, you watch that World Skills and stuff, like, they took that on. They do a lot of things that help a lot of people, and what they do with education. Like, I hear you talking about what they do with education. There's a lot of things that are really good, I think, what they're doing. Even on their facility, like, they got that huge, what's that, the big turbine.
Oh yeah, the windmill.
To me, that's like, I don't have a green thumb or nothing, but stuff like that is cool. Like, it's something totally different, like outside the box. It's like, let's put a fucking turbine on her.
Yeah.
On her. That's stuff like that.
I think, I want to say, if I remember correctly, somebody ought to fact check me on this, but I want to say that windmill generates 10% of their entire facility's electrical use, which is a lot when you think about it. Because, I mean, they're back there testing every machine that comes off the line. So everything gets plugged in, everything gets utilized. Plus, they're back there doing R&D and all that stuff. All the offices, the entire weld school. I mean, that's quite a bit of energy. I want to say that the turbine blades, each blade is 186 foot long. It's freaking massive. You can, like, as soon as you're rolling into Cleveland, like, you look out where their place is, and you can see that windmill from, like, all over the place. It's freaking huge.
Yeah, so that's cool. Like, stuff like that is cool. I mean, that's because that's not, it's not like, hey, let's break down the cost and everything's about making money. Like, that's because I'm sure they don't make money with that turbine.
No, I mean, they're saving 10% of whatever their electric bill would be eventually. I mean, once it's paid off, they're going to start seeing some return on investment with that. I don't know if it's paid itself off yet or not. I don't know what it costs. But I mean, they've got a really cool video. You can pull it up on YouTube on, like, them setting up that entire system and, like, driving the blades through downtown Cleveland and everything. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Have you been to their facility?
No.
Oh, dude, it's freaking cool. And then they just built a whole new weld school area and everything like that. It's freaking massive. And then there's, like, a second story. You can go up on the second story, and they've got, like, all glass windows. So, like, you as a customer or, end user or whatever can go up there and kind of, like, look over and see everything that's going on in the weld school. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, no, it's on the bucket list for sure. One day I'd like to make a trip down there and do a tour. It would be kind of neat to see all that stuff for sure.
Right. You're good buddies with Nate Bowman, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I talked to Nate. I get
link up with Nate, because he's over at Lincoln like every couple of weeks, man.
Yeah. He probably knows. He knows everybody, right?
Yeah. Pop down there and see him, and then just fly out to Cleveland with him one time when he's going out there. It's pretty neat.
I'll tell him to get a +1.
There you go.
We'll go out there.
Yeah, I got to hang out with him a little bit. Him and Rush at World Skills when I went up there to check that event out. That was pretty cool.
Oh, okay, yeah. That I kind of followed a little bit of that. Yeah, it's amazing the skill. Like, I know it's called World Skills, but like the time that these kids put in and like what they're pushing out is amazing.
Yeah. And just to like be there, because this is the first time, it was the first time I'd ever seen World Skills, because like every couple of years it's in a different country. So I can't remember when the last time I was here in the US, but because, China was like, yeah, we're not doing it because of COVID protocol or whatever, and they shut it down. Lincoln was like, yeah, we'll hold it, at our facility. We'll provide everything. We'll take it. We want to make sure that these young men and women have a chance to compete. They've been practicing for years, and they deserve an opportunity. So it was really cool to go there and watch it firsthand. And if y'all haven't seen it, Jody with Welding Tips and Tricks on YouTube, I'm sure everybody's familiar with that channel. He did a really good video kind of outlining, the process from beginning to end. Everything that the participants, what they had to weld on, the criteria, the grading, everything that goes through it up all the way to from the opening ceremony to the end of the actual event. He covered the whole thing, and it's really good.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of YouTube, I watched your 6-part series on when you were with weld.com for that Santa Maria grill.
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, because I was chatting a little bit. Yeah, it was a lot of work, I guess, for you.
Oh yeah, quite a bit, because like anytime you film anything, it takes 3 times as long, because it's like, all right, do this. Okay, you got to do it again because I got to capture it on this camera or that camera, or whatever. Or I want to get B-roll, or I want to get close-up footage or whatever. So like, and then like Man Cub would be working on one thing, I'd be working on another. So while Man Cub's working on something, I'd have to stop, because I can't make any progress unless it's being filmed. Same thing. Like I'd be working on something, Man Cub would have to stop, and like now he's waiting on me. So it goes back and forth, and there's only one camera guy. Everything on weld.com, when I was there, was one camera guy, and then possibly 2 cameras, depending on what we were filming. And It was a lot of fun, but damn, it was a lot of long ass days. So we would, I live 2.5 hours away from where they're at, so that was my daily commute. One way was 2.5 hours. So 5-hour round trip, as long as traffic was cooperating. But yeah, I'd go over there, and we were putting in 16, 17-hour days from the time that we finally got a hold of Sam and was like, hey, we want to build you this grill, and then we're going to deliver it to you, because we had some other things we wanted to do. We wanted to hit up the Good of the Land Festival and all that stuff, and then shoot some stuff with South Coast Welding Academy. So to meet that deadline, we had to like bust ass and, crank out all these 17-hour days. And it was literally like I was driving the truck with, like, we had everything filmed. I'm driving the truck, from Clearwater, Florida to San Diego, California. The camera guy, he's riding shotgun, and he's editing the videos and releasing them Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So the whole time we're driving, we're pulling over at rest stops. He's like buying Wi-Fi so he can upload videos. We're sitting at a rest stop for like 2 hours waiting for this video to upload. So, it would be available at 5:30 the night of the release. It was a lot of fun, but damn, it was a lot of work.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work. Yeah, I just kind of stumbled across that because I was hoping I want to build a Santa Maria grill, so that's why I came across your video there. But I mean, it was definitely educational. So
yeah, I would highly recommend, if you're gonna do one. Like our original design had like so you would cook on angle iron, and that angle iron was like at maybe like a 5 or 10 degree tilt towards the front, and then you'd have like a little drip pan, and that's the way like a traditional Santa Maria grill is, so you can capture all the juices. It doesn't fall through. But like we looked at it and we were like, no, we want to do something a lot cooler. So we took 1/4-inch stainless steel and we cut it out on the Quickie table with the Sam the Cooking Guy logo on there. So it looked a lot cooler, but it wasn't like a traditional Santa Maria style grill, because you want to be able to capture all those juices. So I would highly recommend, if you're going to do that, don't go get a 1/4-inch stainless plasma cut piece. Just do the angle iron.
Does the fat burn too much, or?
No, it just depends on like what you're cooking and everything. So like I said, you kind of want to capture all those juices, because I guess in South America they'll take all the juices and kind of make like a like an au jus sauce or something to that effect with it. So a lot of the meat that they cook down there, I guess, is kind of fatty. Like a Sam the Cooking Guy, he did a picanha, and that's got like a 1/2-inch fat cap on it, and I mean that shit was freaking delicious. But yeah, I think that's typically how they cook it. They got like I don't know if you guys have like a, what do they call it? Texas de Brazil up where you're at. And I guess there's another one, but it's like a traditional South American, like barbecue. So they've got like these, they got these guys that run around with meat on sticks called, I think they're gauchos. And they like, they walk up to your table and they've got like, this one has sausages, this one has lamb, this one has like, filet mignon or, like whatever. And they just slide off chunks of meat that they, they're cooking on big sticks, and everything's like heavily salted because that's the way they typically do it. So I guess it's like a representation of, when they harvest all of the livestock for the year, whenever they sell it, that's like their big, kind of like year end or festival or whatever of the harvest for that year.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know if I probably won't go traditional. I'll just kind of like just the general ideas of it, and then just kind of go with the flow of whatever pops in my head.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because you can cook over like, split wood or whatever, and you can raise up or down, so you can kind of, gauge the heat off where you want it, and you can move the food closer or further away from the fire depending on, how much heat you need for what you're cooking.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want. I want to cook. I like cooking with the wood, like all wood, like splits.
Yeah,
so that's what I want.
That gives you the best flavor, like oak and cherry and all that stuff.
Oh man, it does. I don't have too much access to oak here. Mainly what I get here is all maple.
Yeah, I was gonna say maple's probably big up there.
Yeah, I got a lot of maple. Yeah, but it's it's really good. Like the flavor's awesome, I think. So, and it's lots of it.
Yeah, got to get down to Texas, get some of that mesquite. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I've been down to Texas once. Actually went there with up the Mac with Up in Smoke and a Luma Reel a couple right before. It was like right when COVID was right before, like as it was happening.
Oh damn! Okay.
So, because they wanted to make the commercial there with so they're like, hey, you want to be part of it? I was like, yeah, hell yeah, why not? So they made that commercial there for it was CMR, Up in Smoke, and Illumerial all together.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was a badass video.
Yeah, they did a wicked job. I mean, I honestly, I had I was just kind of like a pillar there. They had that film crew. They knew what they're doing, and for me, it was just like an awesome time. It was like just hang out because Mac and Randy, pretty solid dudes. So it's just kind of hanging out for a couple of days, and then it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, both of them are really cool people.
Yeah, so that was because I know Mac lives up there full time now. So.
Yeah, he's down in Houston now.
Yeah,
I think.
So that was a lot of fun. Yeah, because we got some. We went to his neighbor's place. He cooked us some steaks on some sort of smoker barbecue thing. Yeah, just like unreal, really good.
Yeah, that's how they do it in Texas, man. Everything's. I mean, they've got amazing freaking food down there, or over there.
Yeah,
down there for you, over there for me.
Yeah, over.
Yeah, I try to get to Houston a couple times a year, and it's awesome, man. Like everybody down they're just good people.
Yeah, that's the impression I got, and all the YouTube I watch for like cooking and stuff is generally like Texas style cooking.
Okay,
it's kind of like salt and pepper, and you kind of want the meat to shine type thing. So that's generally what I watch. If I watch YouTube, try to find like Texas style stuff.
Okay, that's how I like the Letterkenny. S&P is the choice for me.
Yeah, you watch that show?
Oh fuck yeah, dude, it's hilarious. I think they've got new writers on the show because this last season wasn't. I don't know. It was just a little bit off. It's like too repetitive.
Yeah. We watched a couple. See, I don't know what we watched, but yeah, I was just like, okay, let's get some new material here, guys.
Yeah, that was pretty much the last season. I was like, geez, like come on, like let's get some new jokes. I think the first 2 seasons were the best. They're freaking hilarious.
Yeah. So
what'd you get into today?
So I just finished up a job. So it was kind of a job I was hesitant to do because there's quite a few dry cleaners around here, and so the thing with dry cleaners, they run steam to whatever the process they're doing. So they'll have a lot of them pretty small steam boilers. Well, I got called. Oh, it must have been like 6 months ago. This guy had it was actually, so I actually got referred from the boiler inspectors actually referred me to do this job. So they phoned and just like, hey, can you do this? It's like, well, I was too busy to do it. And dry cleaners I generally like to stay away from because they're individual little companies and they're always so cheap. And like usually the working conditions are terrible and they don't like to pay. So I'm just like there's no good here. So anyways, the guy was hounding and hounding and hounding. So finally, I went down, so I come up with a price. I don't like to do that stuff by the hour, just submit a price. And then if he wants to do it, he can do it. If he doesn't, then that's fine. So what had happened was one of the handholds was leaking, and steam, when it leaks for like, it's almost like abrasive. It'll erode out the steel quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So this handhole insert was all rounded out from the inside. So to do a repair like that, what they wanted to do is just weld from the inside, but like you can't get in there. So the manufacturer of that company, they sell an insert that you can put in there. So it's a new insert. So you actually cut out some of the shell of the vessel, then you put this insert in, then you weld in this insert. So we did it, and then so for this guy, you know, I usually, depending on who the customer is, you want like a percentage down or whatever. So this being a dry cleaner, you get, you know, I prefer to get like 50% down, which he did. And then we do all the work, and then you get an email, be like, yeah, so we think it's too expensive, and we don't really want to pay like that. I'm just like, oh, of course, like I don't want to do this. So that's kind of been my week, like doing a bunch of other stuff. It's just like, you know, these jobs where you see kind of red flags and you don't want to do it, and you're getting pressured into doing it. We just shouldn't. Let's get 100% down. You're just like, oh,
yeah,
just headaches, man. Headaches.
That's kind of what I've always done is like, you know, at least get the, you know, because I do a lot of custom fab work and stuff. I'll at least get the cost of the material up front. You know, so that way if I buy the material, I'm not out anything. You know, and now I've got now I own the material, so I can turn around and do something else with it. But I mean, that's the best way to do it is 50% down, or, you know, cost of material or something, just to cover your ass. Because I mean, you're taking time out of something that could produce actual money somewhere else. I mean, you could probably done a job where, you know, the customer would have paid you whatever down, and then once you completed the job, they would have paid you the remaining, you know, amount. But now you're you know, pressured into a job, you went out and did it, and then you got screwed. Now, have you been in that situation before? How do you financially recover from that? Is there like a legal action you can take and say, hey, you know, like, I want my money, or you just kind of write it off as, well, screw it, learn my lesson, I'm not going to do that again?
No, I'll get my money. So yeah, no, I've had this. No, it actually doesn't happen a ton, but it does happen. So jobs like this, it's pretty simple because like you have a contract with them, they've accepted a price to go forward with the work. They said, yes, go forward with the work, we accept the price. So you can't just not pay people. So with a job like this, I haven't submitted any of my paperwork to technical safety yet. So if, let's say he's like, no, I'm not going to pay, well, I'll just call the inspector and be like, hey, like, I'm not submitting the paperwork because he doesn't want to pay. And then he's in non-compliance right now. So the inspector, depending on, I think like this guy's pretty good. So he'll probably just be like, yeah, so we're not getting the paperwork, so you're shut down. You know, so that's an avenue. The other avenue is I just have to go to a lawyer and you can put a lien on the property.
Okay.
You put a lien on the property.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they can't do, you know, you can't do anything with, so you get paid at some point.
Yeah. That was one of the things I learned when I went through my construction degree or whatever. You have to do a notice to owner. So if you're like a subcontractor for a subcontractor, before you do any work, you submit a notice to owner, basically telling the owner, hey, I'm working for company XYZ over here. They've subbed some work out for me that's on your job site. Just letting you know I'm going to be there. And if they don't pay me, you're financially responsible. You know, and what that owner will do is they'll withhold the funds from company XYZ and pay you first. You know, you just got to produce all your contract documents. And then you send out like a a notice to proceed, basically letting them know, hey, I'm on site now and I'm doing the work. And then you just keep them in the loop. It keeps everybody honest and everybody gets paid. But like when you're dealing with like a small mom and pop shop, or, you know, like you're dealing with the owner, it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it is and it is, and you just go to the lawyer and you can if they don't pay you, you put a lien on the you know, lawyer will kind of, well, the lawyer will direct you what to do, and it's not like super expensive, like you're not like, you know, litigating and going, but it's just kind of the that's how business goes sometimes. You know, sometimes, you know, business is all risk, right? So you got to learn, you know, what's an acceptable risk, and certain times, you know, are you going to get paid every time? No, not every time. It's reality. You know, it's just one of those things of being in business, right?
Yeah. I mean, if business was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of times it's just easier to work for somebody else. You know, then they assume all the risk, and, you know, you get paid for the, you know, whatever you're contracted for, the hours you put in at the hourly rate they say. You know, sometimes that's easier for a lot of people.
Yeah. And you know, the thing is, most people are actually pretty good. Like this couple of years ago, I did a major boiler overhaul, and you know, you get a percentage down, and then the job's done, and the same thing. You know, he doesn't want to pay, so we put took legal action, and then it ended up going towards a judge, and the judge looked at all the documents, and he made the customer pay for my legal fees and the whole entire remainder of the balance plus interest. So people, like, that's why we have a legal system. So, you know, you can't just say, no, I don't want to pay. It's a pain because you know, you float this amount for a year or whatever, but just is what it is, right?
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass when people don't want to like operate, you know, on the up and up, and they kind of want to be shady about it. And I mean, they get screwed in the end, but it's a pain in the ass to deal with it. You know, you should be able to just go out there and like, okay, here's the price. Okay, yeah, we agree on it. Go out and perform the work. You know, once the work's done, the inspection clears and everything, you get your check, and everybody's, you know, they fire back up the plant, the shop, the dry cleaner, whatever, and, you know, everybody's good to go and everybody's happy. But sometimes you get shisty people out there that, you know, they want to try and skirt the system. And, you know, I mean, that's what sucks, because it falls back on, you know, you when you did the work. Now you're out the time that you could have been making money elsewhere. You're out materials that sometimes, consumables, you know, if you have a helper on the job, you know, you've got to pay them. You can't just be like, well, he didn't pay me, so I'm not going to pay you.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, you know, it is what it is. But most people are pretty good. That doesn't happen a lot. Most people are pretty good, and it's a small world, right? Everybody knows everybody. Like I know like so many contractors in my area that do, you know, a lot of the same things. So you make a couple phone calls, like, hey, so-and-so doesn't like to pay their bills. They're like, okay, thanks for letting me know. So they'll go down two options. Maybe they'll either not work for them, or when they do, they'll charge double, you know, because they'll be like, I'll still do the work, but it's going to be worthwhile.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I'm going to charge you double. That way, when I get 50%, it's 100% of the original cost of the job.
Exactly. You got to know how to play the game, right?
So, that's one way to do it.
Well, it's a small world. I mean, you even look at all this Instagram and everything. Like everybody, if you talk to 10 people, one person will know the same people you do.
Oh yeah. That's the cool thing about social media is I know a lot of people that know, you know, the same people. Like the welding community is huge, but it's very small, tight knit community when you think about it. You know, you go through and start, you know, talking to some of the people, and you all kind of know the same people.
Yeah. No, social media is great. I think it's good for all of us. Kind of it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, you know, you see, because a lot of the stuff you see is not reality either. Like, people only show the best of the best of the best of what you're doing. You know, there's a lot of hard times. You know, things can get difficult, but none of that is shown. Like, I don't show, you know, I wouldn't want to, you know, maybe I don't want to air my dirty laundry, but like you wouldn't show the hard stuff that happens, or like, you know, not everything goes as planned, or you lose money, or, you know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, I think more people should show, like, here's the part that sucks. It's like, I did this, and just not do it to like bitch or complain, but be like, hey, you know, if you're getting into this industry, here's something you might have to face. You know, and I think that would kind of carry some weight too, because, you know, you're being honest and transparent, and you're not showing just the good. You're showing the shitty times, because not every day is sunshine and roses, man. Sometimes you got to like get up in the morning and eat shit till you go to bed at night. And you can just kind of gotta grin and bear it and do it the next day, you know, to make, you know, make ends meet and make sure you got money coming in. And I mean, there's a lot of sacrifice that people don't see. Like we were talking earlier, you know, like if you want to get into where the money's at, you got to travel. Like nobody's really showing that. I mean, I thought it was kind of cool. One of the graduates from Kentucky Welding Institute, he's out traveling and working right now, and he's kind of doing like a vlog style thing. Like he's like, hey guys, you know, like, here's my hotel for the week or the month or the next 6 weeks or whatever. It's kind of a shitty spot, but you know, it's dry and I'm warm, and you know, here's my hot plate and I'm making some ramen noodles tonight because, you know, here's what I'm getting for per diem. I mean, it's like, it shows, and then he's showing like, here's the good times. Like, here's some good welds I made. Here's a, you know, great contractor that I'm working for, and everything's going great, you know, but I mean, it shows like, here's what's real, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. That's cool. The only problem I find with social media, like if you air, like there's so many vultures out there that like, it's just like, that can like overrun the comment section. Not that it matters what they say, but it can just be like, you know, and then somebody like, I wouldn't care so much what somebody says, but some people do. And then, so you do it and then you just get torn into pieces. And, you know what I mean? It's just not very nice.
Yeah. I don't like the whole anonymity of it. You know, because you get a lot of people on there that they just don't have anything better to do, so they want to go around and pick fights.
Well, exactly.
Or start shit.
Like honestly, well, and I've had never in my life had anybody say anything to my face. Like,
oh yeah, no, you never will. You never will.
No, you know, and why is that? Because there's consequence.
Exactly.
To what they would do.
Nobody can reach through your cell phone and punch you in the face for being a jackass. But they can in person. So when they meet you in person, they're like, oh, man, it's great to meet you. And I follow you on Instagram. Meanwhile, they're freaking troll just talking smack.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's funny in my Instagram and reality for me doesn't really cross over a whole lot. Like Instagram, it's almost like an alternate reality for me, because I'd say 99 or maybe 95% of the people I work for have no idea what Instagram or if I'm even on Instagram or anything. I don't like to mix it a lot. I prefer to come in as, the nice thing is if somebody doesn't know you, then they don't, they'll just focus on your work only. Okay, you know, I'm going to produce this work and it's good, and that's what I want them to know me for. Like, I don't really, like, my friends and stuff too, at this Instagram account, it was kind of like, they were kind of shocked a little bit, because it's just, you know, let's say I'm a little bit of an introvert. Like, we can talk because we have something in common, but I don't mind not talking either. And like, I don't like a lot of attention. So it's just kind of this weird situation I'm in where we have Instagram and reality. And I don't, for me, it doesn't, at this point, hasn't really crossed over a whole lot.
Yeah, the two don't
make sense?
Yeah. No, yeah, it makes perfect sense. Now, so you don't use your Instagram profile to generate business or anything like that then?
Zero. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No.
It's a very powerful platform. I mean, like, you can use it for free advertising. I know a lot of people use it as like a kind of like a living document of a portfolio of your work.
Yeah, I just like, so the problem with, like, I'm in a very localized area. So, and everybody follow me. It's so diverse, right? They're from everywhere. So it doesn't, and I don't want to travel somewhere else to do the work.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I kind of got to be careful what I do too, because like, I like what I do. And as far as expand, like, I don't really care so much about the money. Like, I like what I do, but I'm in a situation where I can do what I like to do, and I can come home to my family and relax at home. Like, so let's say if I'm like, hey, you know what, I'm going to use Instagram and let's expand tenfold into different things. I just don't want to do that, because I'm the thing that worries me the most. If I do something like that, it would take away too much time from my family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just don't, for me, I just don't, could I do that down the road? Maybe. I don't know what'll happen down the road, but right now, I like doing the work that I do now. Like, I get the job, I do the work, and I can come home to my family, and I have a pretty good balance now. I just don't want to expand too much and get too involved in too many different things, because at the end of the day, I think my family would suffer, because you just don't get time back.
No, that's the one thing is like, I mean, they've said it 100 times, like they're not paying you for, like your skill and your talents and all that stuff. They're paying you for your time. And that's something you can never get back.
Yeah.
Nobody lies on their deathbed and says, I wish I could have put in like another 40 hours before this hit. It's always like, I wish I could have spent more time with my wife or husband and kids and family and all that stuff. That's like, those are the things you don't get back. So I think it's really cool that you run and operate your own business and you can still get home every night. You don't have to travel all over, to make ends meet and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of people that do that. And I mean, God bless them. I mean, it's a rough life to live, being constantly away from your family to be able to provide for them.
Yeah. No, it's tough, and kudos to all the guys, man. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, for sure.
No, and that traveling stuff, that's like a young man's game. That's I'd have people coming out of the program like, hey, what should I get into? What should I do? Go travel now. Like, you're not married. You're not tied down to nothing. Like, go see the world, go travel, go weld, all over the place. Get into something, work some shutdowns for a while, go make a shitload of money out on the road, and then come back and settle down and buy a house cash, and then just live your life. Then you don't have to worry about, making ends meet because your house is already paid for.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. But that's why I think it's important to have it's never too early to try and make a game plan. You don't have to follow that game. I mean, obviously things change, but if you have a game plan and you can kind of execute, you can take different Ys as you go, but you should have a plan. So like you said, if you're a young guy and you're going to travel, okay, well, where do I want to live and how much is that house going to cost me? So, let's do 3 years of crazy amount of work. And then maybe you can buy that cash, like you said, or 50% or, but you have to have a plan. And I think if you do have that plan, that'll keep you out of the bar. That'll keep you from making poor decisions, because you're like, hey, I spelled out this game plan of, where do you want to be? Because it is good to, where do you want to be? You're going to be there at some point. Do you want to work, 4 years on the road and then come back with a rehab bill? Because that's reality too. None of that stuff's free either. So you gotta, if you have that plan, I think it'll keep you straighter, and then you can, make more decisions. Because none of us know what we're doing. We're all just going with the flow. But if you have a game plan, you can, back onto, maybe talk to some other people, and that's a big thing too. Because like, I'm not the smartest man on the planet by any means, like, but I'm surrounded by a lot of smart people, and I'll never hesitate to phone and ask my friends or even people I work for questions. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then they'll keep you straight too. Steer you in the right direction type thing.
Yeah, kind of like what we talked about earlier. Find a mentor, find somebody that can give you direction, find somebody that's got some gray whiskers, and like go talk to them, and like they'll steer you into the right direction. And I think like what you said, like having goals, having a plan when you strike out, you're going to be better because you're working for something. You're not just out there working for the money to go out there and buy, fancy rims and, go to the bars every night and develop a drug habit or anything like that. It's like, I can't go do this because I've got to save money, because in 3 to 4 years, I'm going back to, whatever state, and I'm going to buy a house. And I'm like, you've got things set up. You've got a plan. I mean, that's like, make your plan and then work it.
Yeah, for sure. So it's definitely the way to go. And the problem too is that a lot of guys, if you're working with guys who do have they drink too much or something, a lot of guys, especially a little bit older, they're just looking for a drinking partner.
Yep.
But they're not necessarily there for your well-being. So, but they have no problem bringing you to the bar. So just gotta, keep your head on a swivel, and I'd say, stick to the game plan. You don't want to be working for nothing.
No, 100%. Probably a good place to end it, man. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on social medias and all that good stuff.
Sure, man. Yeah. So I'm just on Instagram. I had TikTok for like 3 seconds.
That fuse burned quick.
Yeah, and then that wasn't my place. I'm just on Instagram, R_Nierop. That's it.
Well, awesome, man. I appreciate you coming out here and kind of explaining, exactly what you do. I'm sure it'll inspire others to get into that career path. And then we, like talking about mentors and, some of the pitfalls to avoid and, some of the things you can and can't do in this industry. And it's been a pleasure chatting with you, man. I've been wanting to get you on for a while. I know Nate and I talked about it a while back, and I was like, he's on my radar. I want to get him on the show at some point. And then we started chatting and finally made it happen.
Sure, man. Yeah, no, I appreciate you being on. I hope everything I said makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't articulate coming out the best, but
I understood it.
But yeah, no, I had a great time, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thanks again, man. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to tune in this Wednesday for an all-new Weld Wednesday with AWS. This week's guest is Ray Ripple. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.